Hello and welcome to another match between Team UK and Germany B in the 2026 World Cup, where we have Heth facing up against TalpaEuropaea. First game we have Bandit Fort, which is not too relevant, but Collection Supplies looks pretty relevant here. I would imagine that is pretty much whoever wins the combination of those splits the best will win this game. Could be a bit awkward to set up because there's no thinning per se. And draw is okay. There's Smithy, Royal Blacksmith. Probably Smithy's preferable given the lack of copper trashing. But the villages are not great. Like Wealthy Village is quite expensive, and Merchant Camp is not very good. Yeah, I agree with Supplies something as the open. I'm not sure what that something should be. Maybe Smithy. Yeah, I think Smithy. It's obviously a lot nicer to find it turn 3 rather than turn 4. But it's not the end of the world if you trigger a shuffle with it. There's also continue stuff, which I hadn't mentioned, which is a village, but not super sustainable long term because it's quite expensive. But you could consider continuing for Smithy here, although I don't think it does anything for you particularly. Probably want to save it for when you actually have terminal collision to avoid. Marauder, I understand because there's no trashing, but to me it's quite slow. I think anything less than 4 should just always be supplies. I guess they're going for trying to cycle around quicker to see Marauder again. Which seems reasonable. Like it's good to trigger that shuffle. Could be collection already. Cobbler could be okay here as well. I wonder if they're also thinking about continue to trigger a shuffle, but presumably if you wanted to do that, you'd continue next turn. Or at least I would probably be thinking about continuing next turn rather than this turn. I think Cobbler's pretty good as first 5. I forgot that they had a horse down there anyway, so gonna trigger the shuffle. I guess you play Smithy then continue for merchant camp. You could continue marauder. You would have enough actions this turn, but then you're going to be pretty over-terminaled later, but maybe that's okay. Just taking collection. Yeah, I guess that seems good as well. Puzzle box is pretty decent. As loots go, obviously goat would be maybe not. Goat's one of the best. Sexton seems really good here. Nice draw for heth that. In the sense of not drawing anything dead. Surely we can't be not playing the spoils. Yeah, maybe collection supplies. Opting for loot. I didn't actually see what the loot was. Orb. Yeah, it's kind of whatever, yeah. You could continue smithy, you could take supplies, and then continue. I don't know what's down there, but my inclination would be to play the smithy. Probably play the spoils unless you need the plus buy. I don't love that survivors play. I mean, if you wanted to do it, you'd have to do it before you played supplies, or you probably should do it before you play supplies. More supplies, I guess, for Talpa. And probably continue merchant camp here. I think we have a lot of yeah, we probably have too many terminals to be continuing like smithy. We definitely want plus buy here. I like collection supplies here. Goat is definitely nice. I wonder how much of an impact it's going to have. Like, how many times are we actually going to play it before the game ends? I guess it depends how much these players play around the power situation, because they're definitely getting low because of all these Marauder plays. continuing a smithy. Doesn't seem to have particularly paid off. And I wonder if you would have wanted to put a collection into the shuffle before you continue the smithy or something. Probably Survivors is better than mine here. I guess we'll have to count the money. We discarded. I see the vision. I guess we can continue here. So kind of using orb as a village to some extent. We top deck Merchant Camp. I'm not sure how many more smithies there are down here, as opposed to, obviously we have at least this one village. I think it's only this village, to be fair. I think probably just collection is good here. There's definitely not been as much collectioning as I expected there to be. Which is, yeah, possibly correct. I guess like the players have been struggling with deck control due to the all the ruins. Quite a defensive estate buy there. I think we could have probably taken a merchant camp or a fishmonger or something like that. I think discard Marauder. Yep. I'd be quite tempted here to continue a smithy without playing the supplies and then hope that although there's only one collection down there, so yeah, that's not going to make too much of a difference. So maybe you have to just green. Talpa did just see heth discard Marauder, so maybe makes the pile out fractionally less likely because they would need to have a plus buy for the Lost Ruins. I'm very curious how this would look not in a mirror if one player was doing Marauder and the other player was leaning more into Village Smithy. Possibly they would just get kind of overrun by ruins, but yeah, I'm not too sure. So if are we continuing? Continue Smithy is very aggressive. We can't play this Marauder because we can't score very much here. I guess you puzzle box the Marauder in the hopes they will help you next turn, and then, or you could puzzle box a copper because we've only got 7, 8 if we play Abandoned Mine actually, which I hadn't noticed there. So yeah, I think that's probably the play here. Puzzle box Marauder, having played Abandoned Mine and take a province. Does this win? Now it probably does. So 8, 15, 4 buys. It's yeah. Yeah, that's a win. Oh, 13. I can't count. Still a win. Yeah, we only needed 9. Nice one. 1-0 to Heth. And game 2 is also looking a bit awkward in terms of this time in terms of payload, and also thinning. I guess payload is kind of Skulk-ish and Stonemason things. But yeah, not very good trashing again. So I guess the question is whether you use Forum more to cycle around the bad cards or Root Cellar to try and draw through everything. I think maybe a mix of the two seems good. We don't really need villagers. We can also throw in some caravans for draw. But yeah, Skulk could be okay here to get at certain points. You can stonemason the gold into 5s or the skulk into like root cellars or something. Opening root cellar seems maybe a little bit early because it could stop you hitting 4 quite a bit. Root cellar skulk. They do get lucky to hit 5. Patron silver I think seems pretty reasonable as well for heth. I kind of want to say that mine is not ridiculous here, but it's been so long since I actually clicked on mine that maybe I've forgotten how bad it is. I assume you pass on 2. It seems like you don't want squire, and you might want stonemason, but you'd probably rather get stonemason from stonemasoning for like 2 5s or 2 caravans or something like that. I like the forum. 6, probably forum as well. There's no need for barracks, and I think forum is better than gold here. And yeah, we don't really need bazaar at all, I don't think. Although I did just notice that there is a bazaar missing. It's kind of just a peddler, unless you're playing terminals, which we're kind of not. I think one more forum seems pretty good, or we could start on mine already. Just goes for caravan. Yeah, I'm struggling to evaluate all of this. I think we stonemason for something here. 2 caravans. Sure. Just going for a bunch of caravan draw with some forum filtering. Seems as reasonable as a lot of things. That doesn't do anything, which is quite nice. I guess it's kind of like miserable in that it costs you 2 VP, but it's not that bad because it filters the estate off your deck, and also it's easier to trash estate with stonemason than it is to trash. Easier to trash curse with stonemason than it is to trash estate. I think you definitely play the Stonemason, but none of the options seem amazing. Yeah, just taking Caravan is fine. Could consider stopping. Chooses to play on. And Stonemason again. Nice. The next question, I guess, is when do we province? Um, I feel like Mountain Pass slightly incentivizes earlier provincing, fractionally. I think we trash copper here as well. Yeah, nice. And goes for mine. We've got quite a few terminals now, although I guess we don't have to play Stonemasons. So, question here of whether you want to Stonemason. I assume you do, and then if so, what are you Stonemasoning? Could be getting rid of Skulk. Could be getting rid of gold. Could just be thinning a copper. Yeah, I'm struggling to evaluate what's good here. My instinct would be Stonemason gold. So what's this going to be? 2 forums. 4 on mine. I don't think we need another bazaar particularly, although it doesn't seem crazy. Yeah, that seems correct. So if we play all of this, assuming we're stonemasoning coppers, we'll have 7. Stonemasoning gold seems pretty reasonable as well. Maybe 1 more bazaar, yeah. Yeah, I definitely like heth's position at the moment, although it seems quite close because they were player 2 here. I don't hate killing the gold too much. It's not that difficult to get more, I would say. And at this point we're not really drawing, but yeah, I definitely would have considered killing just a copper there. I wonder if Talpa still needs this skulk at all. I don't think the attack is doing much, and the plus buy also isn't doing much. And obviously doing even less if it's not being played. Um, it's not the worst shuffle to trigger. We will have 4 caravans and only leaving 3 cards on top, but also seems okay to stop. Maybe just Stonemason or Stonemason? Or just Stonemason and Copper. This seems like kind of too much building, potentially. We do have a lot of Stonemasons in deck now, to the point where it's maybe not helping us to add more stuff. I think I probably would have preferred just trashing a Copper and buying a single Bazaar instead of keeping the Copper and getting a extra Stonemason and Bazaar. So for Talpa, I guess we take silver into gold, and I think we need to start thinning some of these coppers. If you trash copper, you hit 7, which is maybe not the best number. Interesting. So piles are getting pretty low, especially with Stonemason around. So what would a win look like for Heth? I guess stonemasoning 1 gold into Duchy Bazaar and piling the stonemasons some other way. Seems very feasible. Oh, deluded though. I'd forgotten about that. Okay, so we need to get all our gains from playing the stonemasons. Still seems possible. I mean, we need to play a caravan because it's not here yet. We need to find the gold, which I think we have. Do we still have a gold? If not, we can mine into gold, which I'd forgotten about. So I feel like we need to score. And what else? So at the moment, assuming we play mine, we have 10. So we can thin 2 coppers. And then it might be one of those cases where you just take the mountain pass debt. Kind of regardless. And then, I mean, it's maybe a risky play because we probably don't need to do that, but I would imagine next turn we could pile without needing to then take a points lead. Although it might depend on what those 3 cards are. So I think one of them is a forum, right? I think heth must have 2 forums. But again, we would have to find 3 stonemasons to pile next turn. Either way, I like taking province here. And we thin at least 1 copper. I think we thin another one. I wonder what you bid here. It seems quite important to get the points. So I'd be leaning slightly higher, but then awkward one. Maybe like 17 feels roughly like a good number. But to me, I think it would have to be very high for heth not to want to take it. Equally, if Talpa bids a large number, heth can let them have it because they're not going to be able to pile with only 2 stonemasons. Yeah, it's for sure not like an easy decision, but it's also, to an extent, such a difficult decision that thinking extra might not help, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm just lazy and I don't like thinking, but I often just do mountain pass based on roughly like intuition. Maybe with a bias of trying to look for opportunities where I can bid 40. Just because it's fun. But yeah, definitely not, this is not one of those cases for Talpa, because they would need at least 2 turns to pile out. I guess we can think back over the early game. I definitely like the patron open because the villagers are actually quite have come in quite handy throughout the game. And yeah, I don't like opening Skulk because it's not particularly increasing your money density. Like a patron is um obviously two coins for one card, and Skulk is 3 coins for 2 cards. So it's yeah, kind of less payload in a sense than patron. Um and yeah, the hexes don't do too much. Deluded here was slightly relevant, but obviously quite the big opportunity cost of having to draw and play the Skulk. So 18, yeah, seems pretty close to what I was thinking, and I agree with Heth taking it for 19 debt. Although I would have also agreed with them not taking it. So, yeah, in summary, I feel like Heth was just in quite a decent position anyway. So, Talpa definitely needs to start scoring, although not looking too good here because you can't thin a copper while taking province. Estate into 2 coppers is not very appealing, so maybe you just stop and take a province here. What else could you do? You could take gold into like Duchy Forum and then take another Duchy. Um, in a vacuum, I think Forum 2 duchies is better than Province, but obviously you'd have lost your gold in that situation. So I think we keep playing the Bazaars. Um, maybe play that Forum a bit early. I don't think there's ever really a situation where you would want to not play the Bazaars. If we're trying to Stonemason into Stonemasons, there's um, obviously caravans for that as well. So this is not yet a win. Stonemason, Gold, Patron, Bazaar. Yeah, nice. I guess the forum order didn't actually matter because we didn't need the coppers versus green. But yeah, I thought I had played that one very nicely, and especially the end game. Um, was definitely an interesting one. We have Ninja, although there is minion draw to X, which kind of soft counters Ninja. Importer is decent as well for getting minions. League of Bankers means that you basically just have like +1 coin every turn, with Importer being the only liaison. So that does make the 2/5 pretty bad. I'm thinking remodel is good, and I also quite like minion here. Which seems okay as well, because the curses are quite awkward to trash. I agree with Importer on the 3. Yeah, I have to go Switch. I think that's Probably slightly better than minion in terms of early game. But yeah, for sure would be sad if you draw remodel dead. I wonder if invest sees much play here. Villages are often things you want to invest in because you know your opponent will probably take them. But here, Plaza and Harbour Village, like Plaza is for sure better, but it's not. I don't know. Doesn't seem like that much difference between them. So then the other thing you might want to invest in would be Minion. Does draw a remodel, which is a bit sad. Oh, Gondola to play it. I hadn't even noticed Gondola was on the board. Yeah, that definitely seems correct. I think you take a ninja on this next 4 for Heth. Talpa on 5 here. Could be minion. Second witch is going to be a lot of terminals, although they can also do the remodel into gondola trick to play an extra one at some point. Their next hand is hitting 4, so they can pick up a village there. I guess this 4 could also be a village for Heth. Which, yeah, I definitely do think you want Plaza here. Harbour Village only relevant if you're playing Galleria or Squire. Or I guess actually Minion for coins is a thing as well. But if you're playing Minion, then you can probably play Plaza to discard the coppers for a coffer anyway. Yeah, I like Village Ninja there for Heth. And we can be remodeling Curse into Squire, which is not too bad. There's also the fun Squire below the line effect, which might be relevant here, where you can trash a Squire with remodel and gain like a minion, as well as the 4 cost from the remodel. Um, 3 could be importer. We could spend the coffer for a village. Seems close. Talpa probably probably doesn't need importer since they already have one. Could be ninja, could be more village. Nice not to draw anything dead there. We can next turn the gondola. And I would like to pick up a minion, personally. Second witch seems okay. Yeah, think about it, probably second witch, because the curses really do hurt quite a lot. Third witch would likely be too many. just because they have, I guess, limited use after the curses are gone. I would imagine you discard Copper Curse here. Reasonably likely to find something in the top two that you want to remodel. And here I wonder about remodeling Squire versus remodeling Curse. They do the Squire thing. Investing in minion I do quite like. Seems better than picking up an extra village. Oof. Yeah, that's the pain of minion. I think Gondola here would be quite nice. Just takes more village. One nice thing you can do is Importer to gain the minion, which is invested in, and then play your own minion or I guess ninja, and flip the hand anyway, so they don't get the draw benefit. This is a bit of an awkward decision. I might be tempted to remodel a state into Gondola to play the ninja. Probably just next turn the Gondola and don't buy anything. I had actually forgotten about the banker's coin, so maybe we this turn it and buy a village, or yeah. I do think we want to get these minions out of exile at some point, but maybe closer to the bottom of the shuffle rather than the top. Although, one minion player, we are now close to the bottom of the shuffle. So probably remodel curse, assuming that you don't want to. You don't really want to take minion to trigger invest, and you don't really need curse. So trashing squire doesn't seem super appealing right now. Yeah, I mean you can't really be. I don't think you can afford to take minion and give your opponent 4 cards of draw. But it seems semi-likely that the curses will be gone before you get to play this witch if you gain one. Coupled with the fact that Squire is obviously like pretty nice with draw to X style decks, like Minion is in. I assume you take Curse into Squire. Yeah. Doesn't seem necessary to try and turn it into a state instead for points. Potentially could have thought about not getting Minion there, knowing that Talpa had Importer out. Because the Importer obviously wants to be getting a Minion. I don't like discarding when you're about to trigger a shuffle. Yeah, you'd much rather have one less card to draw through. Although this is just a win anyway. Still, that coffer was not helping you more than the copper. But yeah, well played, Heth. I think the opening definitely helped them there. But they played the rest of the game pretty well as well. So what do we have in game 4? Pickpockets, which Underling is pretty good at countering, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Thinning is develop or temple or trading post. So plenty of options. Draw will be, I guess, well, there's both envoys here. They both seem pretty good. I'm thinking maybe regular envoy. Although I guess it kind of depends on the hands. And then Border Village is a nice village. Acting Troop is okay. I guess you could also like situationally practice the Acting Troop, which will be 8 villagers. which will really kind of get you set out for the rest of the game. I do like develop on the open. So we had Silver Temple and develop Envoy. I think it's too early for an Envoy. Not typically a card you want super early in the game, because in the top 5, you're likely going to have 4 bad ones and maybe 1 good one. So yeah, definitely a danger of skipping over the card you want. I guess Envoy does hit 6 reasonably often, but I feel like Mapmaker does as well. And it's obviously less likely to hit if you open it with another terminal, as opposed to like Envoy Silver. But anyway, yeah, develop seems good because turning estates into underlings or silvers seems pretty nice. But temple also seems quite decent. Just might be harder to ramp up a bit if you. There's obviously, like, I feel like a tendency of temple to get you too thin, and then yeah, you're struggling to add payload. Practice, develop, of course. Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, I was talking about practice earlier, and I didn't even think of it in terms of if you draw your develop dead. So was that? No, that was already in their hand. Yeah, it's these kind of hands that make temple feel quite bad. So we take border village, maybe trading post, although we might need plus buy. Yeah, Imperial Envoy seems pretty good as well. I do think we'll want a trading post to deal with the coppers, but for sure it makes sense to get Envoy first. Imperial, that is. Seems quite tempting to practice develop and trash this temple. Into like acting troop, Imperial Envoy. Takes border village. Yeah, Imperial Envoy. Probably just more Envoy. I don't feel like you need the temple, and the 2 points is not that significant. But yeah, we do actually have quite a lot of draw already. And yeah, as I said before, I do think the temple is a nice target for developing, if nothing else. And then I guess you take the 2 VP. Practice develop here seems pretty good. And an empty practice. I mean, it's 2 VP, but yeah, this is not really the part of the game to be trying to score 2 VP. So I'm feeling good about heth in this game again. I think we develop acting troop on top and then draw on. Nice. What's down there actually? There's not really anything down there. Temple and whatever that top card is. So could develop the Envoy. Develop copper would leave us 6, which could be border village trading post, potentially. Nice draw to find Imperial Envoy on top. Potentially that was correct, but I guess Talpa needed to think about whether they were trying to draw deck, because if you're trying to draw deck, then regular Envoy, then Imperial Envoy will pick up all the cards, but if you play Imperial Envoy, then regular Envoy, you're going to have a card left at the bottom. Could have also got around that by saving an underling to pick up the last card. So those bottom 2 are Temple and something. I don't know what the something is. Silver. Yeah, if the plan was to play the Envoy, then should have been before the underling. Yeah, I think leaving it as 6 seems reasonable to take Border Village and could be Trading Post again. Well, not again, but also for Talpa. Is definitely the best way of clearing the coppers. Focusing a bit on the temple points again. I think you clearly deny Border Village. Yeah. So we can play Trading Post. Probably play Trading Post, develop, and then practice develop. Probably, I'm thinking of turning Temple and Envoy into like 2 sets of 3-5. If you're planning to play Trading Post, you want to play it in the action phase rather than practicing it, because that way you get to play the silvers. Yeah, I guess we leave a copper. No, just going for Border Village. Yeah, it doesn't seem unreasonable. I'm not sure heth needs to spend a favor here. Probably they can discard Acting Troop, but you're also going to play Underling this turn, so it doesn't matter. So we currently have 9. We could. I quite like the idea of develop. Um, develop Envoys, okay. With 9, I think you take Border Village and then practice Acting Troop. Market seems, yeah, probably like the best thing you can pick up there. You don't particularly need draw. I think Talpa definitely wants to develop one of these temples, but it's difficult to know what you take on top. I think probably develop the other temple as well. Then we've only got 4. Yeah, I agree with silver for sure on the 3 there. Market seems okay. Maybe map maker. I don't think they benefit from more Envoy. Another 2VP temple is, it's just quite slow. It's not really yeah, like sure you can develop it afterwards, but it kind of does nothing for your deck. So I wonder if we develop Envoy into gold so we can use it this turn, and then potentially develop map maker into Envoy so we have an Envoy on top. Probably into like Envoy silver. Making sure to gain the Envoy first so that we can then draw the silver. Yeah, I definitely like that. So yeah, develop Imperial Envoy, gain gold, draw gold, develop map maker, gain Imperial Envoy, silver, draw the silver, and then play trading post on the 2 coppers. Developing into border village is nice in general. I would say it's not super helpful this turn because we're not adding more payload. And with the way the draw is, it's like you don't want loads of Imperial Envoys because they draw too many cards, but you also don't want too few because you're unlikely to find them in your starting hand, which is why I definitely like setting up Envoy on top using develop. Yeah, it seems like we're maybe playing a bit too, I don't know if cautiously is the word, but we're adding a lot of draw. Which maybe isn't a problem because I do feel like heth is quite a long way ahead. But yeah, it felt like underplaying the turn a bit. I agree with developing that temple. Not sure what to do with the rest of this. That seems reasonable. Seems reasonably likely that Heth could win this turn if they went for it. I think you take, yeah, those two. I agree with. I think we can play Border Village first. We obviously don't need to because we have so many villagers. But I think if we are going for a win, it looks more like developing fours than it does developing the Border Villages. It's probably gold map maker, yeah. I guess we just draw up with the markets. We only have one. Do we have one develop left? Or two? I can't remember if I don't think there's one down there, is there? So yeah, it seems quite difficult to try and play for a win this turn. Definitely not discounting it in terms of being able to like practice develop and then practice a market or something like that, but yeah, that would be quite complicated and not necessary to go for. The easier win would be like practice develop, gaining 2 markets, 2 acting troops, but then you'd need to be able to buy 3 acting troops and a duchy, which I think is too much money. seem to be going for it on market develop. Oh yeah, this is definitely here. Yeah, nice. That was definitely easier than the acting troop one. Because then, yeah, obviously you get to gain the develops and play them. Very well played. So that is 4-0 to heth. So secured the match point for UK, but the extra games could still be relevant in terms of tiebreaker. So let's hope they keep up all the good work. We have replace, which seems very good here. There's Villa Watchtower stuff, which I think is quite nice. How to open. I definitely like one Watchtower. I'm not sure what to pair with it. Potentially a second Watchtower. The other option could be maybe silver. I guess ultimately we're trying to populate at some point on this board, but that might not be super easy. I don't feel like Cauldron's going to be relevant here. Because replace is going to be potentially giving out curses as well. I do hope we don't get the kind of replace game where people are just trading estate to curse back and forth and then the game ends. I would much rather we got to see more play. Which I think the Watchtowers will encourage, because if you have obviously Watchtower in hand, it's going to counter the cursing. Stonemason 2 Hounds is... I don't think I've ever seen that opening before. I'm not sure how I feel about it. There's not too much Hound synergy. There's Tide Pools, which might be what they're going for. But yeah, you need like 2 Hounds for every Tide Pools you play each turn, which is quite a lot. Messenger Silver is an interesting one. I feel like when you've seen your opponent open 2 Hounds, the silver feels like it benefits them more than it benefits you. So if you want Messenger, I'd be more inclined to Messenger for like, I don't know, Curse. But I'm not convinced that we do want Messenger particularly. We do get a very nice turn 3, obviously. Yeah, being able to get the replace and shuffle. Yeah, Aristocrat is also not typically a card I would say is a good open. It's kind of like a double Necropolis effect, or I guess like playing a village and then a necropolis, which doesn't help it line up with your terminal draw very well. And yeah, if you're not using the village, then you're you're not getting any benefit. I think I would quite like to stop and buy a villa, and then play Watchtower, play villa, play Watchtower, and then hopefully replace an estate. The other option, I guess, if you don't want to trigger a shuffle, is like replace silver into. Yeah, you kind of really don't want to do like replace silver into villa. That seems bad. And if you don't do the Watchtower thing, yeah, we do find messenger, which is nice. Um, Maybe more replace. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. They could have had the Watchtower on top, couldn't they? But they didn't. I think Talpa definitely needs replace. It's so much better than Stonemason for dealing with the estates and the coppers. I guess you play Watchtower, even though you're not super likely to hit 4. Because I don't know what else you'd be doing. Does manage to find Watchtower, which is nice. Could be replaced into another replace. Replace into estate. It's quite unambitious. Yeah, I would have much rather seen replace silver into replace, draw up with Watchtower, and then replace estate into villa. Um, I guess into villa and potentially into Watchtower, so we have that on top. Another aristocrat seems okay on the 4. Yeah, I feel like Talpa's Tidepool's Faithful Hound dream has not really come together. Because it is quite difficult to get it started, I guess. Like, you need to find the hound ready to discard with Tidepools at some point. What are we stonemasoning? Yeah. You don't need that many hounds, but it's like at some point, like at the start of the next turn, Talpa needs to have the hounds in hand, which isn't very likely. Although they do find them, which is very nice. Although, I mean, still maybe doesn't do that much for their turn. Maybe Stonemason for a replace. I wonder if that's too many replaces. We've already got quite a few. Market replace, yeah. Yeah, very, very fortunate for Talpa. So their deck might be kind of kicking off now. But still feels like they're pretty behind. I think they need to like Stonemason for a place or something. I wonder how. Yeah, they could take more Tidepools because they do have more hounds. I'm wondering how Stonemason compares to Mirror, both in the sense of this kingdom and in general. Because obviously Mirror costs one extra. Let's just assume it's just like you buy one mirror, so it's either 2 replaces for 8 or 2 replaces and a Stonemason for 7. I wonder which one you'd usually prefer. Probably Stonemason, because the actual card Stonemason is pretty decent in a lot of kingdoms. But mirror is probably I feel like it's probably best when you're mirroring multiple times rather than just once. If you hit 13, you can mirror populate and choose which action you want to gain twice, which is a fun interaction that's not seeming too likely to come up this game. Anyway, I missed heth's turn. Didn't manage to draw anything good off the top, just replaced. Yeah. Heth potentially a bit low on Watchtowers. Only having 2 of them doesn't seem like enough. Talpa does almost hit populate. They decide that Platinum is helping their deck. Not unreasonable. I feel like as Talpa you kind of need to try and score with colonies. Draw with the aristocrat. Yep. I think we definitely put a Watchtower on top. And maybe don't play the Stonemason, so we can populate. Man, how do you resist the urge to click populate there? Stronger will than I. You can do messenger with populate first. Another fun combination. Anyway, Talpa not having a great turn. I don't know about discarding both hounds there. I wonder if you keep one to try and have a turn. Doesn't seem unreasonable that Heth could win here. So maybe replace hound into villa. Not found much draw yet. Probably replace into a Watchtower and then draw with market. Yeah, that definitely seems correct to me. Probably replace the state into Watchtower. The Stonemason could be relevant. Yeah, I like that a lot. We don't need this aristocrat because it's just giving us buys. Is there a win here? So we have 10. We can populate. That doesn't seem like that's going to be enough gains. Unless, so if we populate, we can, do the messenger first trick to gain 2 villas, which we can replace one and stonemason the other. But I still feel like the piles are. Well, we have lots of buys. We could buy out the estates. Is that going to win? So if we stop now, we buy populate. Messenger for probably curses. What do we replaced into 2 villas? I feel like that was definitely a win. Well, not definitely, but I feel like that was a win. But I'm struggling to keep track of everything. I woke up way too early this morning. But yeah, the idea would have been to pile on like villas, estates, curses. So we could have stonemasoned aristocrat into 2 estates. We could have either gained villa from the messenger or given up 2 curses. I guess there's no need to even populate if the only powers you care about really is messenger. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go back and look at that afterwards, I think. I wish there's a way of like knowing what decision point it was from the log. That'd be quite useful. But it was Heth's turn 14. So Talpa can hit Colony this turn and replace twice, which probably seems good. I feel like you have to go into a state. And then also probably Stonemason, replace Stonemason into a state. Tide pools actually makes a lot of sense, given that you've seen the Watchtower first time. So we can play Aristocrat, then Messenger, then Watchtower. Aristocrat, then Watchtower, then Aristocrat would see more cards. But we do find some villas, which is nice. Watchtower again. Then Aristocrat, unless we maybe need to stop and think here. No, this is going to be a win now, isn't it? We can Stonemason into 2 estates, replace the other Aristocrat into a state, and buy the curses and province. Yeah. Seems like they've found the same thing. Going for hounds. So very well played again by Heth. And this is game 6. Inherited Farrier. So we're going to trigger a shuffle turn 2. I think we probably want a Sentinel to be in that shuffle. Long term, it's a bit awkward with progress. Um, I guess we want to be scoring some with arch points. We can get arch points for definitely Farrier, definitely Tea House, Dungeon, I guess. But Tea House seems pretty strong here, so I imagine progress will activate, and then that's going to make Pirate kind of bad, because when you gain the treasure to your hand, it's actually going to gain to your deck, which sucks. And it also makes greening pretty painful because it's going to go on top of your deck. That is mitigated quite well by Dungeon, so maybe less of a problem unless you're greening like loads at once. I guess something like Sprawling Castle, where you're gaining multiple green at once. That's a bit worse than normal. I think this should definitely be Sentinel here. You could consider messengering, but I wouldn't want to do that. I don't think Familiar is good here because the trashing is so strong. For Heth, it's quite interesting on the 5. I do wonder about Tea House. I think the presence of Farrier does make Tea House a bit better early on than usual, in the sense that you can turn the money into draw. Also, we already have plus buy in the deck, but it also seems quite reasonable for Heth to take Sentinel turn 1. I don't know that we necessarily want Messenger in deck that desperately. Like, maybe it's okay, but we have decent cycling anyway, so we don't need the deck discard thing that badly. Yeah, Farrier likes money, and I guess there's kind of like anti-synergy between Farrier and Sentinel, because if all your cards are in your hand, they're not going to be on top of your deck. Hethica's junk dealer actually on the 5. Yeah, I do quite like that as well. For some reason, I hadn't even read that was on the board. Anyway, so what do we see? Messenger for Humble, and then turn 2 Goat Herd. Junk dealer there, I think probably should have been a Farrier, because Talpa already had the Goat Herd in deck, so could be Farrier, overpay 1. Could be Dungeon. Seems reasonable. I definitely don't like the Humble open. I think it's like super rare that that's viable. And I would say usually the cases where it is would be if you have like Hovel, and then you can trash the Hovel. Otherwise, maybe stuff like Keep, because you get 5 points for it. But yeah, this board probably not. Although I can see castles being okay here. Surely more farrier. Yeah, probably a bit early for tea house when you could be drawing 4 extra cards. Again, probably farrier for heth. So now potentially we add tea house and a small farrier overpay. There's also the angle where you probably quite want to deny farrier here. So yeah, I think that seems more important. So I would take 2 farriers as Talpa there. It would leave you with like kind of an awkward number. Well, yeah, I guess they went for that, and then you just don't get an overpay. But I think I prefer overpaying by 5 compared to getting a tea house. Double tea house, very reasonable there. So 1 tea house and the other. It's a good question what you want. 4 seems a lot worse than 5 here, unfortunately. Could be dungeon. I would have been quite tempted because I'm pretty sure they had a dungeon down there in the bottom 3. They could have left that with messenger, and then potentially you gain crumbling. Well, they gain crumbling anyway, but now they don't have the filtering on top, which makes it look quite a bit worse. So could be tempted to take like small haunted, but I would rather just keep piling on the tea houses, tea highs. And potentially a dungeon to go with that, which won't be helpful next turn, but might be helpful like next turn. And I think we do ultimately want them because of Arch. I very much like Tea House Dungeon here. Ooh. Uh, mm, Seems pretty slow to me. Like the curses are annoying going onto your deck, but at the same time you've had to buy a potion, then next turn buy a familiar, and then the turn after that you get to start putting curses in. And sure, we might get familiar arch points, but yeah, it definitely seems like too much of a detour for the benefit that it provides. Bit of a question what to do. But not too bad. I think they need more tea house. Could be like tea house double dungeon if you want to get the arch points now. I don't think that's necessary. I think just double tea house is pretty okay. Heth is capped at 7 buys, so there's no estate pile trickery. I really don't like small. Yeah, I would say that the reason you might want to take small here is if you then take haunted, because the haunted attack is slightly annoying. But small by itself is pretty awkward. It's obviously terminal if you want to play it, which means you're then putting the castle that gains onto your deck, and you have not played messenger. Yeah, I like taking haunted there, and then familiar, I guess, since we've gone down the potion alley. It's going to really hurt for Talpa's turn as well. Because it means you're not going to get to the dungeon on the bottom. I would have been quite tempted to not play the tea house, potentially. Although, no, I think this is fine. And then I think you buy tea house. Definitely. They discarded with messenger, which doesn't seem correct because well, you're very likely to take a curse that turn. So that junk dealer would be quite handy. And then you've also got a dungeon there on top, which I think we want to play. Again, like, not so much for the turn that you play the dungeon, but the turn after that, if you've taken green, it's really nice to have that start of turn filtering. Is this a win? It is. Yeah, really nice. Really, really well played from Heth, bringing it home for Team UK. yeah, GG's, well played. I am going to try and reload that previous game to see if there was a win. I have to guess a random ID. So we want to be, yeah, the end of this turn. Yeah, after this point. So we get to this stage, we can replace into something. Probably replace. So I assume a win will be Stonemason Aristocrat into estates. And then we can messenger twice. I think we can. When we have 2 buy phases, I think we can do the messenger thing twice. So I think if we stop here, messenger for villas. Are we going to need the... And then we can, again, messenger curse. Yeah. Yeah, so there was a win there on that turn 14 for heth, but they did find it next turn. Anyway, that's a pretty instructive one. So I'm probably going to post that. So we want to, yeah, go from here. It's kind of annoying the way you have to go 1 turn ahead of where you want the game to load from. So this should be the right position. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, thanks all for listening. And well played, heth. Cheers. See ya.